Bienvenidos, querida comunidad PropTech, a este nuevo ciclo de entrevistas que hemos denominado Connection Next, en el cual vamos a estar entrevistando a influencers globales de la industria del PropTech en América Latina y en el mundo, ¿sí? A líderes regionales. Hoy comenzamos en este primer capítulo nada más ni nada menos que con Steve Weikal, Head de Relaciones con la Industria del MIT Center for Real Estate. Nada más ni nada menos. Welcome, Steve, to this first chapter of this series of interviews with global influencers and leaders of Latin America that we call Connection Next. Thank you. An honor for me.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be on the very first episode of what I think will be many, many very good episodes in the future.
Yes, of course. Well, thanks for accepting this invitation. So this is a part of the audience that already knows you and what MIT Center for Real Estate activity. But for those that don't know, could you please tell us what's the activity of MIT Center for Real Estate, please?
Sure, I would be glad to. The Center for Real Estate is a research group at MIT. This is our 35th year. It was founded by real estate developers who were concerned in the mid-'80s that the industry was getting more sophisticated and therefore needed a higher level of education. So they proposed to MIT a program that would not only do research, which is what our principal activity is, but also award a master's degree to the future leaders for the industry. So we have extensive research on the industry globally, as well as 30 or 35 students every year who come through the program. So we have about 1,200 alumni around the world, representing 48 different countries now, which is really interesting, all involved in the real estate business globally. And then on the research side, we look at a number of different topics, including technology, which happens to be my particular area, as you know.
Right, very interesting and a huge,
yes.
Huge challenge. Yeah, you know. Well, now we are in a different scenario, very, very different than 1 or 2 months ago. So we are not going to talk about now whether or not COVID is impacting the real estate industry because it is obvious. But my question here is, which segments of the industry are the ones that have been more impact, and why?
I think those areas of the industry that are high contact obviously are more impacted by what is happening, which is why we see hotel and retail struggling a lot more than industrial warehouse distribution. Office maybe falls in the middle. So what we're seeing is those areas, those product types that involved a tremendous amount of personal contact are going to have to be reinvented. And of course, because of my interest in technology, I'm interested in what technology will allow real estate to become touchless. We realize it won't be fully touchless, but we will start to see the existing technology companies shifting a bit, and then tremendous opportunity for new companies, new startups applying technology to allow real estate to become more touchless, more automated. We've already been, even prior to COVID, we had been working through our real estate innovation lab, and my colleagues there, including Dr. Shigu, have been working on what we were referring to as fully autonomous real estate. Real estate that sort of runs itself by many different definitions.
El real estate, al igual que otras industrias, se está volviendo más táctil, como venimos observando en el uso de pantallas touchscreen, ya sea portátiles o de gran tamaño, que se utilizan, por ejemplo, en los showrooms de ventas. Ante el impacto que está causando el COVID-19, ¿triunfará la tecnología touchless? El no contacto parece ser una premisa de aquí en adelante para las viviendas y oficinas, como se pudo observar en la Semana de la Construcción en Las Vegas. Toilets que se activan sin el contacto manual, duchas digitales con control de temperatura e intensidad del agua, grifos con sensores táctiles o las novedosas puertas que se abren y cierran con solo acercar la mano, introducen hoy, especialmente en baños públicos, una importante medida de seguridad e higiene. Cocinas inteligentes que responden a un comando de voz nos brindan recetas con tan solo pedirlas o prenden calentadores mágicamente. Espejos que cambian el maquillaje o el peinado y además nos permiten comprar productos en un segundo y que a su vez controlan nuestra salud, son parte de la tecnología que dibuja el escenario de la casa del futuro cercano.
Certain markets, certain cities, housing will begin to respond if we potentially have a future where there's more work at home. How quickly will housing respond? Because when we do our research, we're always interested in how does innovation and technology, as I mentioned, create new types of products, but also how does it impact what we design? How does it change what we design and what we build? And granted, in real estate, it takes a long time for this to happen because we're a very slow industry and our assets last many, many years. But I think in the future, we might look back and we may see new types of housing that are set up for people to work more at home. Different floor layouts, different lighting, different access, different technology, different connectivity, because none of this works if we don't have good connectivity. And also maybe offices will change. There was a fascinating article discussing how it's possible that the hard work in your job might be done sort of alone. Maybe you'll do that at home. And you might now go to the office for the social and innovation part of your job. Instead of going to the office to do the hard work, to sit in your office and do the hard work, you might actually do the hard work at a co-working space near your house, or you might actually do it at your own house, but you might go to the office for the social part of what's necessary in order for companies to be successful. So I think though each product type will have its own response, not only to COVID, but to other disruptive occurrences. Might not even be just pandemic. You know, we still have to take a look at resiliency and climate change and affordability and all of the other things that we were worried about before COVID.
The last new concept that we heard coming out of MIT Center for Real Estate last year, maybe in 2018 too, on your first conference here in Latin America, PropTech Latam Summit, was the real estate, the fracking.
We, as you know, my colleague, Professor Frenchman, created this concept of the real estate fracking, which is that the use of the asset, sometimes the physical asset, we've seen this, has been being broken up or redefined in ways that it didn't used to be. And at the same time, there was this convergence of uses. So no longer do you just build a single purpose building for office and a single purpose building for hotel. So this fracking was happening to allow people to unlock value where we weren't able to before. So co-working was a good example of that, where the use was getting more intense and the space was getting more optimized so that it could be more profitable on a square footage basis. And there were examples in all of the other product types. Of course, now we know that in a world of social distancing, this putting more people in the same amount of space is not a good solution. We're going to have to rethink, but I don't think that fracking is going to reverse. You could argue that the newest version of fracking is moving the office all the way into somebody's house. So if you consider fracking as a kind of a redefining of space use, you could say that traditional office went to co-working. Co-working started showing up in hotels and in retail and different other types of products. So you have the merger. Now we've gone to sort of the ultimate version of fracking, which is moving the office into your employee's home. Now the office is the people who work for you. The office has now been moved into their house. So we think there will be this continued redefinition of real estate and what it really needs to be used for. And as I said a bit earlier, new companies will be created when they see an opportunity, some new version. There will be new companies created. There will be some new version of co-working. It probably won't look like what it used to look like.
Yeah, and something like this, it's happening or will be happening with the retails, you know, the malls, for example. I think that it's one of the most, maybe, I don't know if it's loser, but it will be difficult to return to a shopping, you know, to a mall or to the cinema. What is happening with this?
Yes. That retail will struggle. They were already struggling with trying to get people to physically come to the real estate. And this will accelerate. What will retail look like in the future? Maybe the foot traffic, the portion of the real estate that's used for actual people coming to the store will get smaller and smaller, and the rest of the real estate will be used for distribution. Because we're learning now that many of us are living at home and having everything delivered. So I personally miss going out and walking on the street and seeing other people. So I will be glad when that comes back. But we've gotten even more comfortable with having everything delivered to our doorstep. So in order to do that, will the future of warehouse really take over existing retail? That was already happening. That was already happening. And then as far as live performances and going to the movie theater, maybe we'll start to see augmented and virtual reality play a bigger role. Maybe we will virtually sit in the concert hall with other people, and technology may allow that as well. Although I'll miss sitting in the concert hall with other people in real time. I hope that won't go away.
Is there a new concept on advance that you want to share with us? Maybe that you are talking there on the MIT?
We continue to hear from companies about their ideas and their interests, as we always did even before the COVID crisis, about ways to apply both hardware and software. There's an element of artificial intelligence, how to analyze data so that the data can inform how all of these systems work. So we're hearing from companies in the artificial intelligence and data area. It's becoming increasingly important to be able to analyze and be responsive. As you said, there are demands, and yet the system is not able to respond. So I think that will change. I think autonomous delivery will be interesting. There are already trials going on with drone delivery of drugs to people's backyards. The drone brings prescription drugs and drops it in your yard. There have been trials in the Bay Area and elsewhere for robotic delivery of food. So we'll see. I don't know what happens when you have thousands of these little robots running around the street. I'm not convinced that will work, but I think it's accelerating. And so I can't point to any one in particular because maybe it's a little early right now. I know that aside from real estate, there's a tremendous amount of work going on just in medicine and science and production that has potential impacts on real estate. For example, the ramping up of 3D printing for the protective devices and the swabs and the materials that everybody needs in order to do testing. What will that do to warehouse? Maybe we can 3D print everything right in the hospital. Maybe we won't need to put everything in storage and bring it to the hospital. Maybe we'll print everything right at the hospital with 3D printers. But that's very early. That's very early.
Los drones ya están volando por nuestras ciudades y lo harán cada vez más. Utilizado hoy más que nunca con múltiples fines, pareciera ser que con el COVID-19 y la cuarentena que ha afectado a muchas ciudades, los drones llegaron para quedarse. Desde el delivery de comida hasta la entrega de medicamentos, con fines de uso personal o de uso comercial, esta práctica con drones resuelve temas de rapidez de entrega, cubre largas distancias, llega a áreas remotas y baja costos. Con diferentes modelos y tecnologías, los drones van ganando su lugar en el mercado y en el cielo. Numerosas empresas como Uber Eats, Amazon o Google ya han adoptado esta tecnología para gran parte de sus entregas. En el área de la construcción o el mantenimiento de edificios, los drones han demostrado ser un aliado eficiente en los procesos de control, seguridad e inspección de los proyectos, haciendo tareas que serían muy costosas de otra manera, como las revisiones aéreas o el control exterior de las obras en construcción. Los robots parecen irrumpir con menos fuerza en el mercado, pero sin duda llaman la atención de todos. Así tenemos el simpático Chip Dog, que con inteligencia artificial y las indicaciones de sus dueños va aprendiendo patrones y conductas de comportamiento. Como en la familia del futuro se van integrando los robots asistentes personales, como Aido, que nos despierta, prepara el desayuno, controla la seguridad de la casa y está siempre atento a las necesidades de niños y adultos. Muchos de ellos, aún como prototipos, no están disponibles de manera masiva en el mercado.
As you know, the real estate tech no longer exists on its own. All of these different categories they've been overlapping. So real estate technology, PropTech overlaps with fintech and construction tech and many of the different techs. I think construction tech was already getting a push because of the demand for labor and the demand to build things faster and more efficiently. And there's some very exciting applications of sensor technology and machine vision for safety, from traditional kinds of safety to protect workers and understand. In fact, there's an Australian company that puts sensors inside the clothes to understand when the temperature gets too high. And when the workers get too hot, they take them off the job site and make sure that their health is maintained. So it would not be too difficult to add sensoring technology and machine vision to be able to make sure that workers are not working too close together. So that until we get medications to protect us from the virus, and if another virus in the future comes along, can we use technology to make our workers safer? And like real estate, as I mentioned earlier, can we further automate the process so that we can be safer, faster, less expensive, and higher quality? So I think the construction tech area, there will be tremendous growth in that area as well, in part due to COVID, but not completely due to COVID.
I think that the wellness, for example, will be more and more important nowadays.
Yes.
On the buildings.
Yes, and wellness, as you know, we've already been discussing wellness. We're doing a conference with the Harvard Medical School to take a look at the intersection of wellness and health and real estate. And so we'll look forward to that in the future. The technology, there's a young company at MIT that was developed at MIT that is looking to optimize, let me step back. So we have a number of companies that are helping us to optimize office space, to make office space more efficient. What they have done is taken that approach into hospitals in order to optimize the way hospitals are designed and how they operate in order to impact outcomes. So in office, it's always been difficult to measure productivity. It's been difficult to measure if we change the floor plan. We have technology to understand how to change the floor plan and how to optimize the way workers use the office. But we've never been fully able to tie that over to productivity. In a hospital environment, you can potentially measure the outcomes, who gets better, who gets well, who doesn't get well, to understand the impact of that on human beings. So, and then I'm hopeful that that will come back to the office. So we now may be able to measure wellness as a function of productivity as a function of wellness. We may use wellness as a proxy for productivity. So that's very exciting. And I think that's getting pushed along by COVID.
I think one thing is talk about include technology on the companies. And another thing is to talk about a true digital transformation of the companies. Right. What do you think, or where do you think is the secret for a true digital transformation of the company?
Oh, I wish I knew. This has come up a few times. The recognition that the technology is only as good as the people are, and that sometimes it's not about that. We get, I'm guilty of this. We get focused on the technology because the technology is very exciting. But without the change management and without the human element, sometimes very, very good technology fails. And it's because we've overlooked, we've forgotten about the human element. We've forgotten about the change management to have a company that, often a company that's highly successful doing what they have done for many years. How do we explain why this could be useful to them? And so we're finding that large companies and small companies, but many large companies are now tying change management to the technology and trying to focus on the problems to solve and not getting distracted by the technology. And at MIT, we're guilty of that because we love the technology.
The lab is about studying change for the built environment.
You've got the intellectual capital and brain power of MIT behind it. That is truly an R&D lab focused on innovation in the built environment. I think our partnership with MIT and the learnings that we get from just being in this innovation ecosystem gives us an edge to help advise our clients.
We get to really explore not only the buildings, but their context in the city, and then because it's MIT, we get to look at technology and innovation and what the future looks like.
Architects and planners and designers around the world are constantly trying to make change happen for buildings. So opening the world up to the fact that that's happening, and then linking that out to people who actually finance or economically make or approve those changes. Very simplistically, the lab is about, sort of really trying to help broker that change with research-based facts.
We're always looking for every edge we can get to get closer to a better forecast, a better outlook, a better view of what's coming on the horizon for commercial real estate.
Now is the time for commercial real estate. There are immense amounts of venture capital going into not only real estate tech, but also construction tech and engineering tech and all of the other techs that impact the built environment.
The flow of ideas back and forth, I think, has already benefited both sides. We're helping explain to them how some of the innovations are playing out in the real world, on the ground, so to speak, and they are helping tell us, with connections across MIT, really what's coming next or what might be coming next that we should start preparing for and helping to diffuse out there into the industry.
We also work to understand the transition And I think companies are doing a better job of that and will continue to do a better job of that. Especially, this came up in another conversation, especially now, because budgets will be constrained. It will be ever more important to make sure that the problem gets solved, because we no longer have the luxury to try out new technologies. We need to make sure that they are specifically solving a problem.
Yes, totally. Talking about the real estate, do you think that the industry is ready for this transformation?
That's a good question. I think you and I talked about this a few years ago, and I might have said that the industry wasn't ready. I think we've come a long way in 18 months or 2 years since the first time I spoke in Latin America, that the industry recognizes, I think they've been convinced that there are better solutions to how we've been doing it for many, many years. So they now have seen examples, so that's good. Also, there will be pressure to do more with less, to do more with limited budgets and fewer people, and there will be pressure to find tools that allow them to run their companies that way, more efficiently with fewer people, and run their properties more efficiently and effectively. So I think the time is right. I might always also point out that this real estate tech trend that we now call PropTech, in the very beginning, we didn't have a name for it at all. In 2009, 2010, 2011, there were a handful of companies. Yeah. We didn't call it real estate tech or commercial real estate tech or PropTech. But they came out of the prior economic collapse. Those were mostly real estate people who had, frankly, some time on their hands because the economy was so bad. And they learned about new coding and mobile devices, because remember, the iPhone is about 10 years now, about 11 years old. And so at the time, I think they were looking at the iPhone and seeing some of the apps on the iPhone, and then looking at our industry, which is, basically run off of spreadsheets. And they looked at that and saw an opportunity, and they identified certain problems that could be solved in a way that that hadn't been solved before, and it was faster and cheaper to do it now. I think that's going to happen again. I think if the economy does slow down, let's hope that it doesn't, but there are already some indications that it's going to slow down. Even if it doesn't slow down, it's going to change. It will be forever changed as a result of this COVID experience. That there will be opportunities and there will be entrepreneurs, and they will look at ways to apply technology, and wonderful new companies are going to get formed out of this in this current environment. And that will continue to change our industry.
Final question is how we call this cycle of interviews. What's next? What's next for the real estate industry?
Well, again, I don't claim to be able to predict the future, but I think given what we've experienced over the last cycles, there will be, as I mentioned earlier, there will be new product types created, new real estate product types created. The existing products will get reinvented out of necessity because of these very unusual circumstances that we're in. There will be some very exciting new startups created that maybe wouldn't have gotten created before. To fill a need and to solve a new problem that none of us could have predicted. So, and then the fourth thing would be new applications of existing technology that we never expected. So, as we discussed earlier, around the area of health and well-being, around the area of touchless real estate that's automated, because we now have a greater concern about touching and the health implications of that. So I think those would be the four things that we should be looking for. And perhaps in a year, we'll come back and do this again, and we'll see how accurate I was on my predictions.
Well, now maybe the present, it's difficult now, of course, but I think that the future will be amazing with all these things that we are talking about. Yeah.
Yes. I still believe that there's a tremendous opportunity for Latin America to observe how the industry responds, and in a way to leapfrog and learn from the mistakes that are made, and therefore move forward faster. I'm intrigued by everything that's going on in Latin America. Is always very exciting and interesting to me, and it reflects a little bit the learning by observing what's going on in other markets, not just the United States, it's also Europe and the UK. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity to be more efficient about the innovation and the deployment into the industry. It's a more efficient way to go about it.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your time, for this such important information that you share with us. And well, I hope to see you soon in person.
I hope to see you in person again soon, and it's always a pleasure, and I'm always very excited to be a part of the growing and emerging Latin America PropTech ecosystem, and we're so fortunate in the industry to have you leading that effort for us in Latin America.
Yes, it's a challenge for us every day.
Yes. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And muchas gracias a toda nuestra audiencia por estar compartiendo con nosotros este momento. Recuerden seguir toda nuestra actividad PropTech en español en nuestra nueva plataforma PropTech Latam Connection, y hasta el próximo encuentro. Gracias. Bye, Steve. Thank you.